Agent, we need you. You must
Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, the job's done, y'all. The job is done. Digimon story, Time Stranger, in the books. Took me a little bit over 60 hours to complete, and I had a blast. But the real question I wanted to answer with this video was simply this. Does this game stand tall in just the monster collecting genre, or does it stand tall as its own video game? Was it just the Pokemon hatred that was booming this game to the moon, or is it doing something special on its own? I wanted to talk about that, especially with all the glazing I did for Digimon story across so many videos in the last couple of months. It only felt right, even if I've done this long enough to know where you're going to throw a video out into the algorithm and it's just being sent out to die. This is one of those that's just for the love of the game. Like, I know this is probably a flop in the making, so if you are here, you're a real one. Thank you for showing up. Let's talk a bit about Digimon. Now, as I said in my first impressions of the game, Digimon Story Time Stranger is my first Digimon video game really ever. I think I played like an hour of Cyber Sleuth on my Vita, but otherwise, I was a fringe Digimon fan my whole life. Kudos to the team for really pushing the presentation forward enough to catch my attention and to get me to become a fan, and now I am paying attention to everything Digimon related moving forward. That's because while the narrative does come up short in some areas for me, I feel the overall presentation was strong. You look at something like Hacker's Memory or Cyber Sleuth, and while I see fans love those games, the presentation quality of those games is a bit dated, a bit limited, but they really pushed it here. And so when there's a scene that really needed to be something big, whether it was like the end of the world or other scenes I won't spoil for you, I think they did a great job. Again, that scene where like your timeline ends and you get kicked back 8 years, like that lives rent-free in my head, and it's so important to the entirety of the story. It just keeps being referenced. So it's such an important scene, and they really put a lot of resources into that. There were also neat artistic touches to this game that I wasn't expecting, like the theater segments where after big moments in the story where maybe certain characters die or live and you have to fix time itself, those segments kind of retelling the story there and doing it in this very theatrical way with character silhouettes and whatnot and a narrator talking over it, I just really like that. So overall, the story presentation was like at times just very simple, you know, click X to progress and that's it. Sometimes it was like crazy big budget cutscenes with amazing fights or explosions, and there were times like this where it was just very artsy fartsy, and I just kind of liked the diverse palette of ways the story was delivered to me. Now, the time element this game leans into is good at first because it gets dark. What I'm referring to is the Abyss area. I think this is really the strongest case for this game of what its narrative can be. You have this war between the Digimon ongoing, you know, the Titans are attacking, everyone's trying to find out why, and it's causing division within the digital world. And at the heart of the story, you have Neptunemon and Venusmon. And I just got to say, like, again, like the way these characters start when you first meet them and how they progress in their Digivolutions when you meet them later, and sort of what's happening with the story involving poison, I was like, whoa, I did not expect it to go here. The problem that I do have with this time travel mechanic, and if you watch a lot of Maddie, you'll know where I'm going with this one, is Trails Through Daybreak 2 got the same exact critique from me earlier this year. I was in fact so surprised this game went down the same rabbit hole, which is that you then start to use the time travel mechanic to undo terrible things that are happening. And because you continue to do that 1, 2, 3, 4 plus times in this story, anytime you see something go horribly wrong, you know it doesn't matter because it's going to get undone. And again, Daybreak 2 earlier this year fell into the same rabbit hole. The pattern is fine if the rug gets pulled out from under me, like, oh, there is no undoing this. Oh no. But that never really happens. And because the game starts to establish this formula, it feels very predictable. And in turn, because I know things are going to be okay, when they're trying to ramp up and create tension, it ultimately doesn't work on me. So while I do think the twists were a bit predictable and the overall narrative started to slow down a bit, I still found it enjoyable because it had heart. At the end of the game, I won't spoil of course, I did feel some things, a bit of a quiet sadness, and that was cool. Like, hey, they did that there, and that was something I was not ready for. But I think when you get to a certain scene after the credits roll, I went, wow, you know, that was really good, very tasteful. So The only gripe I really have with the actual story is the way the time traveling mechanic is handled on a sort of narrative tool level. But the other thing I would complain about is the whole anime character bit. And I won't explore why, but just there's serious scenes in this game where they talk about you and they call you an anime character. And I'm just like, it's just like completely taking me out of it. It's so unserious, bro. I don't know how else to put it other than that. So yeah, the story I know is not why like everyone's here, but I really did find it compelling, especially with this whole world-ending threat. I think they did a good job with the presentation. The overall story and characters were interesting enough to hold my attention, but I just think it could have been like a little bit more and just really hit a home run if it went into those darker areas that we know Digimon isn't afraid to do. But overall passing grade on the story. Digi farming. Let's talk gameplay. Oh my God, this is so addicting. I loved this little meta game. It was like a Chow Garden inside a monster catching game. I was so about this life, man. Anytime I got a new agent rank and I saw you can now Digivolve, I was like, oh, and I went in there, dude, the tweaking and twerking and tinkering that I was doing with these Digimon was crazy. I was constantly going in there, checking their stats. Oh, you need 2000 attack to evolve into this form. I don't know what that silhouette is, but I want to find out. I'd put them in the farm, get them a little punching bag, have them get to work. And while I'm going to work in the story, doing some side quests, here my Digimon are progressing. So just anytime I could just get in that lab, take some Digimon that I would scan into my party, evolve them into unique things, sometimes turning them straight up into fodder. I was not afraid to feed you to my wolves. My pack of wolves needed XP. Sorry, dude, like I'm not gonna use you. In you go. I loved that entire metagame of managing the Digimon. It was just something I would spend so much time with. It was easily my favorite part of the game, was just managing the monsters. And also the music, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but for the Digifarm, so zen, so peaceful, so tranquil. Loved it. So the whole Digivolving element of this game and just the different branches that are there. I love that it's not like Pokemon where it's like one route and that's it. It's like there's so many different starting spots and they can end up in completely different areas. It gives you a lot of choice, but you can also devolve them, if you will, and bring them back a step to bring them up another pathway. You can then start to interact with these monsters, changing their personalities, and these personality types are going to be important in the late game evolutions. And then you go even a step further and there's certain items that are required, like certain Digi eggs that are needed to evolve into very specific types. Like there are the easy to obtain Digimon, and then there are the late game high agent rank, but also like really specific items and personality types that really get you deeper and deeper into this metagame. But the way it's introduced at first, I was just taking it as it was, and it was very simple and easy to approach. But as I got further into the game, every 10 hours I put in, the system just got a little bit deeper because I understood it more. And I really loved that. Easily my favorite part of the game. The other part that I really loved was the combat. Great strategy, great challenge. I was, dude, this is an SMT game. I don't know how else to word it, but this is an SMT game. Not just because like, you're a dude with a bunch of monsters, but also the end dungeon in this game had like 9 boss fights in a row, and it was tough. I was really, really taken aback at how difficult the game could get, and I appreciated that because, again, not to bring Pokemon into all of this, but yeah, that's something I wanted from this genre, but just on its own as a turn-based game. The strategy in this game is great because of the tools at your disposal every turn. You get 1 item usage, and you can use an item, swap a monster, you can use an item and attack. Like, you can take so many actions within a turn, and the game knows that, so it's not afraid to push you. This started to lead to deeper strategizing for me. Originally, I was just a complete offense guy. Like, I was not really thinking deep with this game. I was just like physical attack, but then you get to that first boss who nullifies physical attack, and you realize, it's time to start building out some intelligence-based monsters. I need some magic in my party. Then you get to that point and it's like, oh, okay, but here comes this other boss that's going to start nerfing your stats. I need a Digimon that purely functions on support. Now all of a sudden you're swapping monsters in and out every single turn to have them do a certain action, but some are weaker than others thanks to a really great weakness system that you can manipulate in your favor. You can even use a skill called character reversal and just completely flip everyone's weaknesses and stats. And again, I hope I'm emphasizing it well, but just the depth of the combat system was really impressive. I think the boss fights are good in this game. I think there are ones like Zombie Plutomon that were great, and I wish they did more of these. It's no doubt clearly inspired by Unalesca from Final Fantasy X, and I think that's great. I love Final Fantasy X's boss fights because they are gimmicky as hell. Like, there's always a strategy, a thing that you exploit, and like in that one, you know, healing is bad, and I like how Zombie Plutomon played with that a bit and was like, hey, if you heal, your health bar is going to get smaller and smaller. Because when I first started fighting him, he lured me into a sense of comfort. Like, I was chipping away at him, he'd hit me, didn't hurt that bad, but all of a sudden as my health bar got shorter, his little bits of damage were suddenly Herculean. And I loved that. So I wish there were more boss fights like that. It's those moments, again, much like the story, where there's those glimmers of like true greatness that kind of mix in with the overall good game. Otherwise, a surprising amount of animations and VFX work really bring the monsters to life. Like, I really love, especially late game, how many unique skills all of these monsters get. I thought to myself at first, one of my complaints in my notes was, yeah, I wish every monster had more than one unique skill. But then you get late game and some of these guys and gals have like 2 or 3, and you start to realize, wait, so it's actually reverse of what I was thinking. They gave the little monsters that don't really matter unique animations and VFX work, and then the bigger, better monsters that I really care about, they gave even more to. So it was really just high return on investment for me in that department. And I just love seeing these monsters come to life, gave them real personality and real purpose in my party. I love the little mechanics attached to the combat system, like combat speed, being able to just ramp that up. There was a point toward the end of the game where like I was ready to get going, and I ramped it up to 5 times speed before the final dungeon, and that felt good to me to just be able to control the motion there. I think the only complaint I really have about the combat and the difficulty scaling is sometimes you do feel like by that mid/mid-late game, you feel like a touch bottlenecked in general, because there were opponents using level 3 general equipable skills on me that I was still stuck on level 2. And I'd done all the side quests and I was like looking around and none of the stores had them. I even went to like places you can craft these skills. Nothing was there. And so I just felt that was the only time the game felt a little unfair. It was never like crushing me, but it just felt a little unfair that like the game keeps you on an even slate for so long. But then when you're ready to move on from your level 2 stuff to level 3 stuff, because you move from 1 to 2 quickly, but when you're ready to move on to 3, they take so long to give you that stuff. And I really didn't think that felt great, but it was really my only complaint when it came to the combat system. Otherwise, my nitpick is that there is a mechanic in the final fight, I will not spoil for you, but it was just really cool, and I get why I was only limited to this final fight, but I wish there was more of it. My final main compliment of the game, the soundtrack is wonderful. One of the best of the year, like really. I saw it won the Player's Choice at the Game Awards, and I think deservedly so. There are themes in this game, like the field theme for the Abyss area, that's just like deserves an award on its own. It's so good, so vibey. But then there's boss themes that always got me hyped up and were way more epic. Junomon's Palace has this very like choir-like soundtrack. I mean, it's just a really strong soundtrack. It's one of those moments where you just think this has way more sauce than it has any right to, and I appreciate that, because a great soundtrack truly levels up a RPG or a JRPG. And I think there's no better example than this year with Expedition 33, which was already awesome, but its soundtrack does take it to that next level. And I think the same thing happens a bit with Digimon. Okay, so those are really all of my complaints. The rest are critiques, like things I had problems with. Side quests, I like that they have continuity, but otherwise they felt just a little throwaway. Like, they're here, you know, go do extra content, player. And I think there were more interesting lines, like just the Coliseum. I enjoyed doing the Coliseum because it was just, you know, indulging in a part of the game that I really liked, just fighting and fighting and fighting. But the stories for some of these were just not good. Like, hey, throw on this costume and talk to this character, and the side quest is over. The main reason I did this is because I love the evolution system and I wanted to get my agent rank up as quickly as possible. But otherwise, like, I had no real motivator on a narrative front to get into that stuff. And I wish some of these were just a little bit more interesting. Some of them do play off of each other and again have that continuity where you complete one and another one unlocks when they evolve later in the game. And I did feel that sort of passage of time was felt really well in some side quests. I just wish there were a few more that didn't feel too throwaway. This game also has just a lot of interconnected maps, and it's fine at first when you're kind of walking in a straight line, but as the game starts to crack open more and you're like, okay, I want to go from like Rebellion Village to Master Blimpmon, and that's because I want to access the Abyss area. So to get from Rebellion Village, you go through like a couple loading screens, or you can just fly there, and then you're in front of Master Blimpmon, then you interact with him, and you go through another menu, and then you can fast travel to where you want to go. And it's just like, again, really where the side quests become a bit of a pain, because the main game does a good job circumnavigating this because it's just always moving forward. But when it comes to the interconnected maps and side questing, it does feel a little bit tedious. Perhaps my biggest complaint about this game is the card game. It's just I'm gonna be blunt, I like everything pretty much about this game. This is the biggest piece of crap I have played, man. I really think this is such a waste. Like, it's just such a nothing. Like, let me break it down for those who are just watching because they're curious. You have one side with a set of cards, you have another side with a set of cards. As you go through the game and you beat people in these card matches, I did every single one I could find just because I was like, I wonder if there's something at the end of this grind. But anyway, this card game, you don't build a deck. It's randomized every game, and there's really no strategy to it. It's just weakness types, which give you a higher chance, if you exploit it, of winning. You'll still sometimes put out the weakest Digimon with the weakest number, because that number on the top right of all the cards is your power level. You'll still put that out there, and you'll win anyway. Even if like you're down on the weakness chart and you have a weak Digimon, it's not even like I'm using a level 1 against a level 7 like they tell you in the rules of the game, where they're like, yeah, if you do it that way, guess what? You'll actually be more stronger than that. I'm like, okay, cool. That's an interesting little gimmick. But it's like, I'll put out a level 2 against the level 6 and I'll be completely weaker to it, and somehow I'll win. Or obviously the reverse happens. My opponent beats me because they just used whatever and they beat me. It's just a game of rock, paper, scissors, and there's no real challenge or strategy or figuring it out. I wasn't expecting Gwent here, but there's really nothing to it. You just keep recycling until you win, and then you pick a couple of cards, and they don't even mark the cards that you already have. So if you're trying to build a complete collection, you just need to have good memory. And I don't know, man. I just thought it was such wasted potential, because it was that moment of, whoa, they have a card game too. But this was like one of those things where I went addition by subtraction. We didn't need it. This also kind of goes with the outer dungeons. Some of them are just not good. Like, there's this chocobo racing mini game where it just feels cheap. There's another one where enemies are wandering toward you and you have to stop them. And I'm like, oh, a combat one, but you just keep hitting R2 in my case, because I played this on PS5, and you just kill these monsters that are heading toward you. You do that 30 times. There's no real risk or tension. You just do it, and that's it, and you win. You get a little reward, and you're out of there. So I just feel like some of the extra side content that they piled on top, appreciated. You see the effort level, love to see that, but definitely didn't. They kind of took away from the game more than added to it for me. This is something that I'll be interested to see what the Digimon fandom has to say about this next one. But for me, some of these monster names and designs they're a bit phoned in. Like, there are hilarious meme-worthy ones like Nanimon, and I did find it insane how many Gunnermons there were, which, not a complaint, by the way, but I just knew nothing about Digimon. So going in, when I saw like Beal Starmon, I was like, what's going on? What? So yeah, there's a lot of Gunnermons in this game, but then there are just ones that I think by comparison are flat, like Mammothmon, Puppetmon, Locomon, and I'm just, what? So that's just me as a new fan coming in. Maybe it's one of those things where new fans going to Pokemon are like, this is stupid, and I'm just used to it. And maybe Digimon fans have listened to me say this, and they're like, you'll get used to it, bro. So maybe that's just the case, but that's kind of my initial take on some of them. Most of the monster designs, though, were fine. Some of the color recycles felt a bit redundant, like 40 different shades of poop. Didn't really need that, but I digress. And the last thing, the technical state of the game was pretty sound, but Digimon Story Time Stranger does have a similar issue to Scarlet and Violet, where you see broken LODs in the distance. Like, you'll see Digimon flying around the industrial area, and you'll see what looks like choppy frame rate for these monsters. And Scarlet and Violet famously had really bad issues with broken LODs. And yeah, like, it's in those moments where you know, that combined with some aforementioned issues with Digimon Story Time Stranger, that I feel the hatred of Pokemon for a lot of people is very real. Like, they want, quote, their game to win so bad because Pokemon's done such a bad job. And even though I think Digimon Story Time Stranger is the far superior video game, I do think it's because it checks very basic boxes that we wish Pokemon checked. This game has voice acting. This game has great presentation. It has a lot of great things that Pokemon right now could only dream of doing, but it's in those moments where I see similar technical issues and I think to myself, as everyone's telling me to go try this game, well, why isn't that mentioned in the conversation? Why is that suddenly buried? Why is that suddenly okay? I'm not trying to play devil's advocate or be a pain in the ass about it, but because again, for Digimon, it's way, way less egregious. But when I see it, I'm like, guys, I mean, we have some similar problems here, which is ironic in its own way. But yeah, that did stand out to me. So overall, like, would it be in my top 10 of this year? I really have to size up that list. I think it would crack like right on the fringe. Like, if it does, it would probably be number 10. But overall, I'm glad I played it. It got me into the world of Digimon. I had so much fun with it. The combat was great. The music was amazing. The world is spectacular. The evolving and digifarming systems are so good that, like, I'll just play every game for that alone. The more I can do that, the better. The complaints really are just things to be aware of. I don't think they should push you away from this game. And really, if you're someone who is very jaded by Pokemon, this is a game that I think will heal your soul a little bit. Because while what I said earlier still holds true about how some complaints about this game are kind of getting buried, I do feel like overall, this is the standard and that Pokemon should try to reach for something like this, which Digimon doesn't set this impossibly high bar, so I'd like to see them continue to push it as well. But at least I can look at this series and go, hey, they pushed it compared to the last two. What are they going to do next time? I'm excited. That's a good feeling to have. So yeah, if you're into the monster catching games, you're a little bit annoyed about where Pokemon's at, and you want to try something new, as someone who just did that with Digimon, I think it's a worthwhile endeavor, and I'm glad I finished it. So those are my final thoughts on Digimon Story Time Stranger. Shout out to the Digimon community for showing out, giving some love to the recent videos. Appreciate you immensely. And I'll catch you in the next Retro Rebound. Peace out.